Kimmerha Huladunya, how is everyone? Falchagu, that is, welcome to Ye Olde Scots the Celtic podcast. On today's show in Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, that is, let's try a little Gaelic, we're going to continue our 25-week beginner's Gaelic course in lesson 15, and that is all about basic prepositions, which are air and foam. We will talk about early Celtic men and women in our Celtic history segment, and we'll hear about the Irish goddess Brigid and everyday Celtic ways. Now we're going to hear music from Julie Fallis, Anna Vorlich, which is Anna Murray, Pierre Lemieux, Anne-Marie Bozard and Julie Murphy, and a Welsh band named Pendern, which contains two Welsh words, which I thought was cool. Pen meaning the head of, and dern, an abbreviation for adern, which is Welsh for bird, so the head of a bird. But I think it's a kind of a relatively unknown band because I couldn't really find much about it, even on the internet, believe it or not. All right. But this comes off of the album, The Best of Welsh Folk Music. So there you go. As always, it's a wee bit of Irish trivia to test your knowledge to start us off. So when was the first recorded Viking raid in Ireland? All right. Check out Ye Olde Scot Facebook group, where you can be a part of the Celtic culture, post memes, give me ideas, tips, even criticism. So Ceirs Maha, all right. Ceirs Maha. All right then. That's what that means. All right then. Let's get started.
Nagian Catholici. Nagian Catholic. Nagian Catholici. Ademach Nagian Catholici. Nagian Catholic. Shall stay for heft a lechbuch. Jevungur generak setrum. Nagian Catholici. Nagian Catholic. Nagian Catholici. Ademach schönum. Nagian Catholici. Feuchamaich Gaidhlig. Shall retrace and glide Gaidhlig. Ademach schönum. Nagian Catholici. Nagian Catholic. Nagian Catholici. Ademach schönum.
All right, that was Nagian Catholic by Julie Fallis. And that means, I believe, which is somebody's name, I Can't Sleep at All by Julie Fallis. And now, Han Tom and Feuchamaich Beagan Gaidhlig, it's time for Let's Try a Little Gaelic. Now, I'm not an authority on the Gaelic language, I just love learning it, and I, like most, struggle with it, but I want to help. And what I teach comes right from well-respected Gaelic teachers, so I hope you find it interesting, informative, and fun. I also display on the screen what I'm discussing so you can follow along. We're in that 25-part Gaelic lesson, and we're in lesson 15 today, and we're going to be talking about basic prepositions, air, on, and foam. Now, there are some basic prepositions which can be used to discuss to discuss where someone might be. And you'll see displayed on the screen. I'll have them in Gaelic and in English, of course. Aun or ounce means in. Ouncen means in the. Usually the word after the aun or ounce is aspirated. Air, which is on, and phone, which is under. Okay, give you an example of each real quick. Ounce a car, in the car. See how it's aspirated? Air the voord, on the table, or phone chora, under the sheep. All right, we'll get a little more in detail here. We'll take aun first. Aun or ounce means in. Aun car, in a car. And ounce the har, in the car. Do the same thing here with air, which means on. Air voord or air board, on a table. There's no aspiration there, so it's air board, on a table. And air la voord, on the table. All right, move on to phone, which means under. Fo chora, under a sheep. Phone chora, under the sheep. All right, give you a couple examples of each of these. Amveil na muken phone a chorif. Are the pigs under the tree? Ha and cat fluk agus ha I a voord. The cat is wet and she is on the table. All right. Ha and dunya an sahar. The man is in the car. Chaniel ne vornak phone a voord. The women are not under the table. All right. I'm going to give you a little bit of vocabulary here. Mook, which is pig. Namuken, pigs, plural. Kriv, trees. Board, table. Car. Dunya, man. Snok, nice. Gila, boy. Bornach, woman. And tie, house. All right. That's it for today, except I'm going to give you those 6 sentences as always to translate. Get you a little practice in. And number 1 is going to be ha and cat car more. Number 2, ha avuk snok board. 3, ha un ieskadona ansahar. 4, Avail Keher Gilin an Sahar. 5, Nakel and Cat Phone and Tie. And 6, Chaniel and Car Fo Chriv. All right, that's it for Feuchamaich back in Gaidhlig.
Lythyr y ddath yn fore iawn, a dath un arall y brynhawn, fod yr English fleet yn hwylio mas, a fynd dros y cefnfor glas. Farwel fo ilang fel achlon, ar yr edrych I gyd o bron, rwy'n mynd I drio ar un sydd well, pyn y gwlad yn hyn, ter gwledydd bell. Fa la 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 da do. A martio nes I yn fy mlan, nes I mi ddod I dre'r bont fan, a 5 sar drums oedd yn cadw sŵn, a listones i'r lai dragwn. Fi droes ymhen ac I ryw di, yr air ar ac yno roeddent yn fawr ei sport, yn listogwyr i'r Duke of York. Farwel fo ilang gyfel achlon, ar merched i finc i gyd o fron, rwy'n mynd i drio par un sydd well, pyn ei gwlad yn hyn ter gwledydd pell. Fa la 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 dan da do. Wat ni marcho i Linden free, duty calad ddath arno ni, hanlar drill ar cleddyf nodd, a bullets blwm ar powd o'r podd. Os holydd rai pwy nath y gan, at y bwch iddynt a merch bach lan, sydd yn gweddi o bob nos a dydd, am yw hanwyl y gariad cael fod yn rydd. Farwel fo ilang gyfel achlon, ar merched i finc i gyd o fron, rwy'n mynd i drio par un sydd well, pyn ei gwlad yn hyn ter gwledydd pell. Fa la 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 da do, fa la 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 da da do.
All right, that was Farewell to Sweet Langfelloc. Now that's by Anne-Marie Bozard and Julie Murphy, who were both Scotch Gaelic singers, and it's an unaccompanied duet in Scotch Gaelic, but the song seems to be popular in Wales of all of places. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So today on Celtic History Break, we're going to learn about early Celtic men and women. All right. Now, to the people of the Mediterranean, Celtic men were remarkable for their height and build, and they were praised for their milky white skin, their blue eyes, and blonde or red hair. Now, while not all Celts were tall, blonde, and blue-eyed, archaeologists discovered that some were indeed of impressive stature compared to today's standards. Now, many Celtic skeletons have been unearthed that measured well over 6 feet 5 inches tall. One Celtic chief's skeleton found in modern-day Germany was almost 7 feet tall. Now, in war, their stature was enhanced by their attire. 1st century BC historian Diodorus Siculus wrote of the Celts that they have bronze helmets with tall crests, which give their wearers the appearance of enormous height. Now, more than 2,000 years ago, Celtic men cultivated formidable drooping mustaches and wore neck rings as torques made of gold, silver, and bronze, now consistently described as magnificent physical specimens by the contemporary Roman writers. Celtic men practiced weight control and physical conditioning as preparation for battle. Being of good physical condition was important to the Celtic man, and overweight or fat warriors were fined or given lesser demeaning duties until brought back into proper condition. Ultimately, Celtic warriors were judged by their prowess in battle, for there are mentions of warriors who may not have looked the part but excelled when it counted. Now, noted Roman Pliny the Elder, and others wrote of the early Celts' colorful clothing as well. The Celts' clothing would be purple, crimson, green, and adorned with ornamental fringes, and could be striped or speckled, and presented the wearer, even a common man, as haughty, and as almost as haughty as any of the Roman elite. Now, the men who dressed like this were said to love war and be fearless in battle. Aristotle used the topic of Celtic men to discuss the nature of bravery. For centuries before and many to come, nations would tremble at their name. They would discuss their terms of surrender before ever setting eyes on an actual Celt. Yet, they were known as much for their poetic ballads as for their prowess and bravery in war. Classic 1st century BC writer Diodorus Siculus wrote that Celtic women were not only equal to the men in stature, but rivaled them in strength as well. Caramandua, a Celtic queen in Britain, was known as a fearless leader of her people. Roman writer Dio Cassius recorded that Celtic queen Boudica was huge of frame and terrifying of aspect. A mass of bright red hair fell to her knees, and while Boudica undoubtedly made an imposing figure, it is known that classic historians were sometimes guilty of exaggeration, although it is important to note that Julius Caesar decreed as law that if you were writing about history, you must adhere to the truth as much as possible. He didn't want a bunch of hype and a lot of propaganda in what was considered the historical chronicles. Now, that didn't apply to him, of course. It is left to the reader to decide whether they did or not. But like their men, Celtic women were vain and took good care of their appearance. They adorned themselves with colorful clothing and ornate accessories. They painted their nails, used berries to enhance their hair, wore finger and ankle rings, and of course they braided their hair, which of course they were famous for at the time. Some Roman women would even be scolded for appropriating a similar style as the Celtic women. Now, Celtic women stood out amongst the women of the time, though in an age when Roman wives were chattel to their Roman husbands, Celtic women were far ahead of enjoying close to equal rights with their men. Celtic women were able to own property, which Roman women were not. Celtic women continued to control all their personal possessions after marriage, and they would fight right alongside their men and take equal share of the spoils of war. The Romans were in awe that many women would fight and were impressed with their valor and prowess in battle. Some Celtic women even ruled as chiefs on their own merit, even when the goddess of war was but one of several important female Celtic deities. There are many similarities between Celts and the Scandinavians, which are the Vikings, which I don't like calling them the Vikings, because Viking means, to go Viking means to go out and raid. So it's not really what their proper name is. But the Vikings would invade the British Isles long after their Celticness had been civilized out of them. And the inhabitants of kingdoms like Wessex, Northumbria, and Mercia were the same thing. Their Celticness had been civilized out of them. Now, I wonder what would have happened in Lindisfarne in 792 AD if the British people had retained that Celtic ferocity and that prowess of battle. But I guess we'll never know. All right, that's it for Celtic History Break.
Do
All right, that was Tir na Nog, which means Land of the Ever Young by Anna Vorach, which is Anna Murray. Now it's time for Everyday Celtic Ways, and we're going to talk about the Irish goddess Brigid. Now, we've been discussing a different Irish goddess the last few weeks. Today's is Brigid. The Celtic goddess Brigid is one of the most venerated deities in the pagan Irish pantheon. As the solar goddess, she embodies the element of fire and is commonly depicted with rays of light or fire emanating from her head. Irish mythology relates that she was born at sunrise from the Celtic god Dagda, the earth god, and Bowen, the goddess of fertility. Now, they belong to an ancient tribe of gods called the Tuath Danann, or the people of the goddess Danu, who practice magic. Now, after they lost their mysterious islands in the west, they traveled to Ireland in the misty clouds and settled there. When Brigid was born, she had flames shooting out from her head, and through them, she was united with the cosmos. As a baby, Brigid drank the milk of a sacred cow that came from the spirit world. Worshippers sometimes called Brigid the triple goddess for her fires of the hearth, inspiration, and the forge. Now, you'll notice that I've even mentioned, we've only done 4 Irish goddesses, and a couple of them are considered the triple goddess. And that's because even in the Celtic religion, the Celtic goddesses, and even the gods, you'll notice that the symbolicness of the Trinity shows up. They did a lot of things in the threes, just like the Christians did. They have the Trinity, which made it really easy to convert pagans because they had something in common with their religion. Okay. Now, she is known as the goddess of healers, poets, smiths, childbirth, and inspiration, goddess of fire and hearth, and a patron of warfare, or Brigda. Her soldiers were called Brigands. The name Brigid means exalted one, while her most ancient Gaelic name, Briosaig, means fiery power or fiery arrow. She is also known as Brigantia, Bridge, Bride, Brigidin, Brigadu, and Brigid. She is said to lean over every cradle and bless every child. The lore and customs have continued to this day regarding Brigid, and more vividly than all of the other Celtic deities combined. In the Middle Ages, Brigid is the main in many stories, and in one, she is the wife of Breeze, the half-Fomorian ruler of the Tuath Danann. Their son, Ruadin, wounded the smith god Gabinu at the Second Battle of Magda Turdig, but he himself was slain in the combat. Now, Brigid then went to the battlefield to mourn her son. This was said to be the first Cain, which is a keening or a lament. It's a song. It's heard in Ireland. And until recent times, it was tradition for women to hire a queen at every graveside so that they would have somebody there lamenting and singing for the lost one. Now, in another story, Brigid was the wife of Turin and had 3 sons, Brian, Lucar, and Icarba. In the tale, the sons of Turin, these 3 killed the god Clan, or Clean, father of Luig Lamfada, when he was in the form of a pig. Weird. Now, she was transformed by the Roman Catholic Church to Saint Brigid in the year 453. Saint Brigid is known as the patroness of farm work and cattle, and the protector of the household from fire and calamity. To this day, one of her most common names in Gaelic is Muim Christ, which means foster mother of Christ. The saints list gives her feast day as 1st of February. And St. Brigid was also said to be the daughter of Dulach, a druid who brought her from Ireland to be raised on the Isle of Iona, sometimes called the Druids' Isle. A fascinating link to the traditions of St. Brigid is the fact that a woman called Darluchdacha appears in St. Brigid's community in Kildare as her close companion, sharing Brigid's bed. Darluchdacha, who became abbess of Kildare on Brigid's death, means daughter of Lugh. And to this day in Ireland, St. Brigid's Day is celebrated with kids going around and gathering up weeds and making a St. Brigid's cross out of them and then giving it to an elderly person as a show of respect. I think it's cool. All right, that's it for Everyday Celtic Ways. I hope you enjoyed it.
Ar lannau afon Rhymni, mi grwydrais lawer tro. Annad oedd hwyl I gannu, am mwg y bylle glo. Ar lethrau llwyd Cwm Rhymni, yn oriau'r gwynt ar glaw. Trist oeddwn yn breuddwydio, am ryw binaclau draw. Binaclau'r oesoedd ei rhaid, I hwnt i'r dydd ar nos. Breuddwydion ffôl y galon, a'n greiddiau yn y ros. Ond nawr ble bynnag rwydraf, mae miwsig yn fy ngô. Am fachgen yn breuddwydio, am mwg y bylle glo.
All right. Now that was a Welsh folk song by Pendern. And I'm telling you, this got 2 words and only 1 vowel. I'm not real sure exactly how to pronounce this, so if I do it wrong, I'm sorry. But Chim Rymini. Okay. Wow. That one's rough. Well, that's it for today's show. I hope you liked it. I'm trying to keep it interesting, informative, fun, while showing you the beauty of all things Celtic. Top 11 Herschen. Now, before I go, the trivia question answer. And that was, when was the first recorded Viking raid in Ireland? And, well, it occurred in 795, when the church on Lambeg Island in Dublin was plundered and burned. And at the time, there were no true towns in Ireland, but rather scattered communities near monasteries that served as safe houses or for valuables and food and cattle and stuff. All right, remember to check out my YouTube channel, Olde Scot. It's got Learn a Gaelic song videos and Celtic podcast videos, speaking our language videos and Celtic movies and music, and a ton of other videos. Also check out the Facebook group, Olde Scot, where you can give me your insights and inputs on all things Celtic. And it's also got, if you wanted to, you can just download a copy of the 25-week Gaidhlig course on there as well. We're going through it one by one over the next few more weeks. So if you just want to jump ahead and get it done, there you go. Marsh and Leave and Drozda. Bye for now. I'm going to let you go with a song from Brittany, which is another Celtic nation in France. It's really hard to find Breton songs in the actual language of Breton. So a lot of them are in French and have some Breton words mixed in. This one's called Humours of a Bad Town by Pierre Lemieux. All right, enjoy.